Welcome to the LudoKit Devlog. Today we're talking about version 0.0.55. And this version adds, or recent versions anyway, make a bunch of changes to how the credits fonts management works, in particular with respect to how issues are detected and how you manage them. So I have a prior video about the earlier version of the credits font manager. As a quick recap, the idea here is that if you're dealing with credit fonts, you have to deal with the double challenge. You have to deal with the normal challenge of having a localized game where there are parts of your credits like role headings and other kinds of headings for things, right, that are translated, and anything that's translated potentially needs a different font to support the characters that come from that language. At the same time, you have human names in your credits, and a human name could be in any language, but also you could have multiple human names in multiple languages that to be rendered all at the same time. And so font management for a credits page becomes complicated because you have this two-step process of one, what language is the game in, and therefore what language are my headings in, and therefore what font should I use for those. And independent of that, or I guess in addition to that, what language are all of the names in and which fonts do I use, which you also might want to vary depending on the game language. Because if the Chinese version of your game has a particular style that it evokes because of the fonts that you've chosen, you may want to use a different set of fonts even for the English parts of your credits, or the people's names that are in Latin script. So anyway, the idea of the credits fonts manager is you get to specify all that kind of stuff, and it basically then provides for you a coverage report to tell you, hey, you said you want to use Noto Sans Korean regular by default for all of the names in your credits. However, there are some names that are not supported by that font. Here they are, and so then you can fix that. Compared to the previous version of the font manager in the prior video about it, which at that time only supported names, this now supports all aspects of, or is all the text that is managed by LudoKit that goes into credits. Now all of that can show up here. Also some updates to what's rendered down here, so you can see that the role names are rendered in the resolved font, as well as the human names are also resolved in the font that you specify. And so you can basically scan this list and see essentially what your credits should be looking like, and as you flip different languages, if you have different configurations for those languages, you'll also see that reflected down here, so you can easily scan and see, oh yeah, I can also see down here that this name needs a different font, and so on and so forth. So you can basically preview all that stuff here, flip through languages, get a sense of it, and then you've got your font coverage. And again, this now covers all of it. So it also adds some additional niceties for how you deal with that. So here we can see, here's three things where I've got three different names that don't have sufficient font support. You can see it's telling me which configuration I'm using. So I'm using default names. And so this is the one I would be editing if I wanted to add a font to support it. If I click into it, you can see the font that I'm currently using, which is insufficient. So I'm like, cool, let's add a font. And now it pulls in that text that was unsupported with it and checks all of the fonts in your library to see which ones cover it. So you'd actually see all of your fonts here. You just might see some with less than 100% coverage. But the idea is you would then choose a font that has 100% coverage so that you can make sure you can represent that text. If you're looking at a different language, or if you have few of your things configured, you might see additional options. So if you flip over to simplified Chinese, you can see that right now, you can see it's the same name because it's the same problem, right? This is pulling from my default names, and so just like before, I could go edit that, or because I'm in the Chinese version of the credits for the Chinese version of the game, then I can, instead of just falling back on the base, I could decide to actually add a Chinese-specific configuration. But it works the same either way, and you'll also notice that when I popped over here, versus if I'm in default, which for this game is English, when I flip over to Chinese, then I still see the three things that didn't work previously, right? Because they're using the same configuration. But I also see new stuff appear, and this is because LudoKit has translations for you for role names and other kinds of built-in stuff, right? So when we flipped over to the Chinese version of the game, that means we've got Chinese versions of roles that now need to be set, and because if we're on the default, those names are not in Chinese, so we don't need Chinese font support, but over here, now we do. So now we can see that those are missing, which again means that we can now go in and add a Chinese version or a Chinese font to deal with roles. I don't have any Chinese fonts currently in my library, which I can now see right here. So this is, again, it makes it really easy to tell, oh crap, I need to go find a totally new font that actually supports Chinese. So that basically wraps the kind of intended main behavior of the credits fonts manager and how it interacts with the different languages that your game is in and the different languages that your text is in. So this is working essentially as intended, and that means I'm moving on to other stuff. If you have any feedback on how this works and what seems like it's useful or what seems like it isn't, then pop into the LudoKit Discord and let me know.